Ladies and gentlemen, success is not an accident. It is the deliberate result of disciplined thought and intentional action. It does not arrive uninvited, nor does it remain in the presence of weak habits. You see, there are certain behaviors, silent yet powerful, that quietly sabotage potential. And while many search for secrets to succeed, the truly wise begin by learning what to avoid. Let me reveal to you the habits that successful individuals never entertain. The first and deadliest of all is procrastination. It disguises itself as harmless delay, whispering, there is always tomorrow. But tomorrow is not promised and opportunities do not wait. Successful people act with urgency. They understand that the moment is precious and that hesitation is the seed of regret. They do not wait for the perfect time. They create it. Action is the true measure of belief. If you truly believe in your dream, you will not pause. You will pursue. The second habit to cast aside is the indulgence in negative thought. Doubt is the silent killer of ambition. Fear is the lock on the gate of opportunity. Those who achieve great things have trained their minds to dwell on what is possible, not what is probable. They expect the best and prepare for it with fierce determination. Remember, what the mind feeds on, the soul becomes. Fill your thoughts with power, and your life will reflect that strength. The third fatal habit is blaming others. It may offer momentary relief, but it robs you of control. The successful do not make excuses. They make adjustments. They do not point fingers. They ask, what can I do better? When you hold yourself accountable, you unlock the greatest truth, that your future is in your hands. Responsibility is not a burden. It is a blessing, because it means you have the power to change your results. Lastly, successful people never wander aimlessly. They possess what I call a definite major purpose, a clear burning desire that guides every decision. Without a purpose, life becomes a series of distractions, but with purpose, life becomes a mission. It fuels discipline, invites persistence, and silences every excuse. The man or woman who knows where they are going will never be stopped for long. Obstacles may rise, but purpose will push them forward. Avoid the habits that chain your progress. Reject delay. Eliminate doubt. Embrace responsibility. Define your purpose. Define your purpose. These are not merely good ideas. They are the foundation of greatness. Success is not about what you do occasionally. It is about what you consistently refuse to do. Thank you. Procrastination is among the most destructive habits a person can possess, and it is often underestimated because it wears a mask of innocence. It whispers soft excuses, presenting delay as a reasonable decision. It tells you that the conditions are not quite right, that you need just a little more time, that tomorrow will be better suited for action. But what it does not reveal is the truth. That delay is the quiet assassin of dreams. Successful individuals recognize this, and that is why they treat procrastination not as a small flaw, but as a dangerous enemy of progress. Every individual has been given the same currency of time, 24 hours in a day, no more, no less. It is the one resource that cannot be stored, cannot be borrowed, and cannot be replaced. When you procrastinate, you are not simply delaying a task. You are trading time you can never retrieve for a false sense of comfort. You are giving up movement, momentum, and mastery for a fleeting illusion of safety. The reality is, while you wait, the world keeps moving. Opportunities pass, ideas lose their spark, energy fades. And soon you find yourself further from your goal, not because you lacked ability, but because you lacked action. Successful people understand that action is the bridge between desire and achievement. They do not wait for motivation to strike. They act and allow motivation to follow. They realize that no one ever reached greatness by simply intending to succeed. It is not good ideas alone that produce results. It is the execution of those ideas with relentless discipline. In their world, later is not a strategy. Someday is not a schedule. They move with purpose, not when they feel ready, but because they know readiness is a choice, not a condition. The habit of procrastination is rooted in fear and indecision. Often, people delay because they are afraid. Afraid of fate, afraid of judgment, afraid that their work will not be perfect. But successful individuals do not seek perfection. They seek progress. They understand that mistakes are not to be avoided, but embraced as a part of growth. They know that the path forward is not paved with flawless effort, but with consistent, committed action. While others overthink and overplan, they begin. While others prepare endlessly, they execute. Another dangerous effect of procrastination is how it erodes confidence. The more one delays action, the more doubt begins to take root. Self-trust weakens. Momentum is lost. When someone continuously breaks promises to themselves by not following through on their intentions, they begin to believe they are not capable. Successful people guard their confidence by keeping their word to themselves. If they decide to act today, they act today. If they make a commitment, they follow through. It is this integrity with self that builds the foundation for lasting confidence and achievement. People often misinterpret the cost of procrastination. They believe they are simply putting off a task. But what they are truly sacrificing is a chance to evolve, to learn, to gain experience that cannot be acquired any other way. Time is not a neutral asset. It compounds in one direction or the other. Delay compounds regret. Action compounds reward. Every day spent waiting is a day spent not growing. Every day spent acting is a day spent building a stronger, more capable self. There is another truth the successful know. The first step is the hardest, and once you take it, the rest becomes easier. The mind is an expert at creating resistance before action. It imagines difficulties that may never come. It amplifies problems and minimizes capability. But the moment you start, reality often proves much gentler than the imagination feared. Once same-day becomes manageable. Success-minded individuals use this awareness to their advantage. They do not negotiate with procrastination. They act swiftly, even if imperfectly, knowing that momentum is their greatest ally. Procrastination also blinds people to the urgency of their own potential. Life is finite. There is no guarantee of time. The idea that there will always be more time is an illusion. The person who continually delays the pursuit of their dream risks waking up one day to find that the opportunity has passed, that the window has closed not because it wasn't deserved, but because it wasn't pursued. Successful people live with a sense of urgency, not panic, but purpose. They act because they know that each day matters, each effort counts, and each moment unused is one that cannot be reclaimed. Perhaps most importantly, they have trained themselves to associate action with identity. They see themselves as doers, not dreamers. They take pride in being individuals who follow through, and in doing so, they reinforce a pattern of behavior that supports consistent achievement. Their habit is not to wait, but to start, not to avoid, but to confront, not to wish, but to work, to work. In the end, success is not about waiting for the stars to align. It is about beginning where you are with what you have and trusting that progress will come through persistent effort. Procrastination is a habit of postponement. Success is a habit of movement. The two cannot coexist for long. One will win and the other will wither. And the choice of which one survives is made not in grand gestures, but in the small daily decisions of whether to act now or later. Negative thinking is one of the most subtle yet most damaging habits a person can develop. It operates silently, often without detection, shaping a person's beliefs, decisions, and actions before they ever realize it. The power of thought cannot be overstated. Every result a person achieves, every success or failure, is born first in the mind. That is why successful people are fiercely protective of the thoughts they allow to dominate their inner world. They understand that negativity is not simply a bad attitude, it is a barrier to progress. It influences how one interprets opportunity, how one responds to adversity, and ultimately what one believes is possible. The challenge with negative thinking is that it masquerades as realism. It presents itself as practical, logical, and grounded in fact. But there is a fundamental difference between acknowledging a challenge and surrendering to doubt. Successful individuals do not ignore reality. They simply refuse to allow fear, worry, and pessimism to define their reality. They train themselves to see solutions where others see problems, to identify lessons where others see failure, and to find reasons to act where others see reasons to hesitate. Negative thoughts are like anchors on ambition. They pull a person downward, convincing them that their efforts are futile, that their goals are out of reach, that their dreams are somehow beyond their capacity. Over time, these thoughts don't just affect mood, they begin to shape identity. A person who continually thinks in negative terms starts to believe they are limited, incapable, or undeserving. This belief system becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Actions follow belief, and results follow action. When the mind is filled with thoughts thoughts of defeat, the body will rarely move in the direction of victory. One of the most powerful habits of highly successful people is the refusal to dwell in limitation. They are not immune to fear or doubt, but they do not feed those emotions repetitive thought. They interrupt negative patterns and replace them with thoughts that empower. They understand that what is repeated in the mind becomes accepted as truth, whether it is accurate or not. Therefore, they take control of their mental environment. Just as one would not allow poison into their body, they do not allow toxic thoughts to fester in their mind. They filter their thinking not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. The environment plays a critical role in this battle. Many people are unaware of how deeply influenced they are by their surroundings. The people they spend time with, the media they consume, the conversations they participate in. Negativity can be contagious. It spreads easily in environments where complaining, blaming, and cynicism are the norm. Successful people are highly selective about who and what they allow to shape their thinking. They surround themselves with energy that uplifts, challenges that stimulate, and information that strengthens their belief in what is possible. Another aspect of negative thinking is its effect on resilience. When a person sees setbacks through a pessimistic lens, they are more likely to quit early. They interpret every challenge as a sign that things aren't working. They view temporary defeat as permanent failure. In contrast, those who have trained their minds to remain optimistic in the face of adversity are more persistent. They see difficulty as part of the process, not a sign to retreat. Their positive thinking becomes a tool for endurance. It allows them to navigate hard times with clarity and confidence because they have conditioned themselves to expect growth, even in discomfort. There is also a significant link between thought and energy. A negative mindset drains energy, enthusiasm, and focus. It clouds decision-making and paralyzes creativity. When the mind is filled with worry, it cannot fully engage in problem-solving or innovation. Successful people, by eliminating negative thinking, free up mental space for productive effort. They gain access to higher levels of concentration and insight. They see more clearly and act more decisively, not because their circumstances are easier, but because their minds are better trained. Perhaps the most dangerous thing about negative thinking is how easily it becomes habitual. A single negative thought is not the issue. It is the pattern of dwelling on what might go wrong, what hasn't worked, or what could fail that creates deep mental ruts. These patterns become defaults, influencing every new idea and goal before it even has a chance to breathe. The successful recognize these patterns early and disrupt them. They create new mental habits by choosing to focus on progress, gratitude, opportunity, and the next right step. This doesn't mean they are blindly positive. It means they are consciously constructive. It is also important to understand that positive thinking is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing a more useful interpretation of reality. Two people can face the exact same obstacle and therefore gives up. The other views it as a challenge and therefore grows. The difference is not in the obstacle. It is in the mindset. Successful individuals choose the interpretation that empowers them to move forward, and in doing so, they maintain their momentum where others stall. In the end, the mind becomes a mirror of what is consistently planted within it. If you plant doubt, you will harvest hesitation. If you plant fear, you will reap inaction. But if you plant belief, optimism, and determination, you create a mind that becomes your ally in every pursuit. That is why successful people do everything in their power to master their thinking, because they know as the mind goes, so goes the future. Blaming others is one of the most common and yet most damaging habits that stand in the way of personal achievement. It is a subtle form of self-sabotage that provides short-term emotional relief at the expense of long-term growth. When a person chooses to place responsibility for their outcomes on someone else, whether it be a boss, a parent, a partner, or even external circumstances, they surrender their power to change their situation. They trade ownership for comfort. They exchange progress for protection. And in doing so, they remain stuck, not because they are incapable, but because they have handed over the controls of their life to forces outside themselves. Success, in its most authentic form, is built on the foundation of personal responsibility. It requires the individual to stand up and say, "I am the cause of my results." This is not always an easy statement to make. It requires humility, awareness, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Those who achieve great things do not run from this responsibility, they embrace it. They understand that growth begins the moment they stop pointing fingers and start asking better questions. Instead of saying, "Who's to blame?" they ask, "What can I learn?" And how can I improve? Blame is a defense mechanism. It allows people to protect their ego in the face of failure or disappointment. By shifting the focus to someone else's actions, a person avoids the painful reality that perhaps they didn't prepare enough, didn't plan properly, or didn't show up with enough discipline or commitment. But while blame may protect pride in the moment, it also creates paralysis. When someone sees their circumstances as a result of someone else's choices, they give up the very thing they need most, the ability to change the outcome. Successful people understand that ownership is not about guilt or shame. It is about control. When you take responsibility, you are not saying everything that went wrong is your fault. You are saying that everything that happens in your life is your responsibility to respond to. This distinction is critical. Life will present challenges that are not your doing. People will behave in ways you cannot control. Circumstances will arise that seem unfair. But in every case, you still have the ability to choose how you respond. And it is in that response where your power lives. When a person blames others consistently, they begin to develop a mindset of victimhood. They see themselves as powerless in a world that is constantly acting upon them. This mindset corrodes initiative, weakens confidence, and limits potential. It turns life into a waiting game, waiting for someone else to change, for conditions to improve, or for justice to be served. But those who achieve success cannot afford to wait. They move forward even when conditions are imperfect. Even when others fall short, they rise. Not because it is easy, but because to be responsible for their own life. For the cost of blaming others and when blame becomes a habit, trust breaks down, collaboration suffers, teams fall apart. Whether in business, family, or any form of partnership, nothing corrodes trust faster than an environment where people are quick to shift blame and slow to accept responsibility. Successful people understand the value of trust. They know that in order to build strong connections, they must first lead by example. This means admitting mistakes, owning outcomes, and being willing to hold themselves to the same standard they expect from others. Blame also inhibits learning. When the mind is focused on assigning fault, it is not open to growth. It is in a defensive state, trying to justify and protect rather than analyze and improve. But learning only happens when the mind is open. Successful individuals do not view mistakes as something to be hidden or excused. They see them as valuable feedback. Each failure becomes a mirror, showing them where to improve. They examine their decisions, their mindset, their preparation, and their execution. They look inward before they look outward, and in doing so, they accelerate their development. Taking responsibility also builds character. It strengthens the core of who a person is. When someone consistently chooses ownership, they begin to develop a quiet confidence, a sense of inner strength that does not depend on approval or excuses. They become known as someone who can be counted on, someone who is honest, accountable, and dependable. These qualities may not be flashy, but they are the bedrock of lasting success. The world responds to people who lead themselves with integrity. It is important to recognize that choosing not to blame others is a skill, and like all skills, it can be developed. It begins with awareness, catching oneself in the act of deflecting and consciously choosing a different response. Over time, the habit of blame weakens and the habit of ownership strengthens. With each decision to take responsibility, a person reinforces their own agency. They begin to see themselves not as a passenger in life, but as the driver, and in doing so they unlock the full extent of their creative and productive power. In every journey towards success, there will be moments of difficulty, moments of failure, and moments of frustration. But it is in those very moments that the decision to take ownership matters most. That is the difference between those who rise and those who remain. It is not about the absence of adversity, but about the presence of accountability. Those who succeed choose to lead themselves first. They choose to be responsible not only for their actions, but for their mindset, their energy, and their results. And in that choice lies the freedom to grow, the power to improve, and the key to lasting achievement. Discipline is the force that transforms intention into action and action into achievement. It is the ability to do what must be done even when motivation is absent and distractions are abundant. Without discipline, talent is wasted, potential remains dormant, and dreams never move beyond the realm of imagination. A lack of discipline does not always announce itself loudly. In fact, it often hides in the small, seemingly insignificant choices made each day. The decision to sleep in instead of rise early, to delay work in favor of comfort, to let emotions dictate behavior instead of principle. Over time, these small decisions compound into a lifestyle of avoidance, inconsistency, and regret. Those who achieve lasting success are not necessarily the most gifted, nor are they always the most fortunate. They are the most disciplined. They understand that the road to mastery is built on repetition. It is not about doing something once with great effort, but doing it daily with intention and focus. They show up for themselves even when it's inconvenient. They complete the task even when no one is watching. They honor their commitments even when they don't feel like it. This consistency builds a foundation of trust, not just with others, but more importantly, with themselves. Lack of discipline reveals itself in many forms. Inconsistency, distraction, avoidance, overindulgence, and emotional reactivity. It weakens one's ability to follow through, to finish strong, or even to start at all. The individual may have all the knowledge and resources necessary to succeed, but without the inner structure to apply those resources consistently, success remains just out of reach. People often believe they need more information, better tools, or clearer guidance, when in truth, what they really need is more discipline. The willingness to do what they already know needs to be done is often the missing piece. Discipline is not a natural trait. It is a trained behavior. It must be practiced, honed, and strengthened through repetition. Like a muscle, it grows stronger the more it is exercised. And like a muscle, if neglected, it becomes weak. Successful people treat discipline not as a punishment, but as a pathway to freedom. They know that with discipline comes the ability to design one's life rather than live at the mercy of circumstances. Without it, life becomes reactive, chaotic, and filled with missed opportunities. With it, life becomes purposeful, structured, and rich with achievement. One of the greatest misconceptions about discipline is that it removes joy from life. In reality, the opposite is true. Discipline creates space for fulfillment. It allows a person to make room for what matters most by removing the clutter of impulsivity. The disciplined individual is not controlled by every passing urge. They are guided by values, by vision, and by long-term priorities. They say no to what does not serve them, not out of deprivation, but out of determination to live with greater meaning and clarity. Those who lack discipline often find themselves stuck in cycles of regret. They start things but rarely finish. They set goals but struggle to maintain the effort required to achieve them. They promise themselves change but quickly revert to old habits. And with each cycle, their self-trust erodes. Confidence fades. Hope diminishes, but this is not a matter of fate. It is a matter of habit. The disciplined person has simply trained themselves to act differently. They have learned to prioritize structure over spontaneity, commitment over comfort, and progress over pleasure. Discipline is also the antidote to distraction. In a world filled with noise, the ability to focus has become a rare and powerful asset. Without discipline, the mind is pulled in every direction. Time is wasted chasing novelty. Goals are pushed aside for momentary entertainment. But those who rise to the top are those who can control their attention. They guard their time. They create systems. They commit to routines that support their highest goals. Discipline becomes their shield against chaos and their compass toward clarity. Another vital truth about discipline is that it does not always yield immediate rewards. In fact, it often requires sacrifice up front. It demands that one forego temporary pleasures in service of future gains. This delayed gratification is uncomfortable for many, but it is essential for greatness. Success is rarely the result of one dramatic decision. It is the outcome of hundreds of small, disciplined choices made consistently over time. The person who wins is the one who is willing to do what others avoid. They wake early when others sleep. They study when others coast. They practice when others quit. The lack of discipline is not just a personal issue. It becomes a barrier to leadership, to influence, and to trust. When a person cannot control themselves, how can they be trusted to lead others? Discipline commands respect, not because it is glamorous, but because it is rare. Those who possess it stand out. They operate with a quiet strength. They move with purpose. They lead by example, not words. They become dependable not only in their results, but in their character. Ultimately, every person must choose their path. One leads to ease today and struggle tomorrow. The other demands struggle today and offers freedom tomorrow. Discipline is the price of freedom. It is the tool that turns vague wishes into focused action. It is the force that bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Those who lack it will forever be at the mercy of their moods, their fears, and their impulses. But those who build it one decision at a time unlock a life of excellence, achievement, and self-respect. In the pursuit of success, most people focus on what they should start doing. But those who reach the heights of personal and professional achievement understand that what you stop doing can be just as important, if not more. The habits of failure are often quiet, unassuming, and culturally accepted, but make no mistake, they are corrosive. They weaken ambition, cloud judgment, and slowly chip away at the foundation of greatness. Successful people are not free from fear, doubt, or difficulty, but what sets them apart is their discipline in avoiding the patterns that sabotage progress. They reject procrastination, knowing that time once lost cannot be regained. They guard their minds against negative thinking, aware that thought precedes action and that a polluted mindset can never produce a pure outcome. They refuse to blame others because they recognize that power lies in ownership, not excuses, and they build the discipline to do what must be done consistently, even when it is inconvenient, even when no one is watching. These individuals are not driven solely by external rewards. They are guided by internal standards, by the desire to become more, to serve more, to live at the highest expression of their potential. They understand that success is not an accident. It is not inherited. It is not handed out. It is earned through effort, focus, and the relentless avoidance of behaviors that delay, distract, and destroy. So the message is clear. If you wish to rise, if you seek a life of purpose, impact, and achievement, do not simply adopt the habits of the successful. Eliminate the habits that hold you back, because your results will never exceed your discipline. Your success will never outrun your standard. And your future will always reflect the choices you make when no one else is watching. Choose wisely and choose today.